let's get back to business. Let's talk about Donald Trump. It's all been happening, actually, since this show started. He's just cancelled all the tariffs, apart from, I think he's increased the one on China, which is now on about 104%. So the tariff war with China continues apace, but all the other tariffs is just cancelled. Stock markets are soaring all over the world. All's well with the world. It's coming over more and more like another triumph for this amazing man, Donald Trump. Now, my next guest, he's been on the show many times before, and it's always a pleasure to have him on board. He's written a brilliant new book. It's called The Greatest Comeback Ever: Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. It is the story of how, of course, in the last election campaign, that Donald Trump showed Kamala Harris a clean pair of heels. A warm welcome to author and Fox News star correspondent Joe Concha. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Evan, long time no see. Great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very well. Well, your book is going great guns. Great to see that. But it just so happens we booked you before Donald announced the end of the tariffs. Before we get to your book, what do you make of that?
Well, I think this is a masterstroke by the president. He did exactly what you would expect a great negotiator to do. He got 70 countries to come forward and say, we're ready to make a better deal. That includes the European Union. That includes Japan. That includes India or Israel or Vietnam. I can't go through all 70 countries. We've got finite time here. And they said, okay, I know who's willing to work with me. I know who's willing to go down to zero tariffs for zero tariffs. And if that happens, then that's great for everybody. That's more free trade. He saw China then retaliate to the tune of, okay, we're going to up your tariffs 34%, then 84%. So he knows now that they are not shown to be good actors here, but bad actors. What's going to happen here now over these next 90 days with these tariffs now off as far as a negotiation period, if Donald Trump can get all these countries to sign better trade deals that benefits everybody, then as a group, Europe and India and the United States and Japan can go to China and say, look, guys, all right, we're all doing this. You need to, too, because at this point, for China, they are, look, time's not their friend. Every U.S. company that sources products in China, they're going to find alternative suppliers. And if China can't export its goods, they're in a lot of trouble. So I think at this point, you see the stock market up more than something like 2,300 points today. The Dow Jones anyway, NASDAQ 2, S&P 2, as you said, world markets reacting kindly. Anything that was lost last Thursday and Friday will be gained back and then some, and in the end, everybody gets better trade deals. So all I know is this. Democrats who are complaining about this, who are saying that Donald Trump's wrecking the economy, never even talked about trade until last week. And if Trump could pull this off, and the U.S. economy and the U.K. economy and the European Union in general, if it raises all boats, then Democrats in this country are going to have a hard time ever selling that they know what they're doing with the economy again.
What I love about what's happened literally in the last couple of hours is, with Donald Trump, time and time again, you go, what is he up to? What is he playing at? And you never quite know. I think we just found out. We just found out what his game plan was. And frankly, it's been a masterstroke.
It has. And you go back, and I found one interview he did with Oprah Winfrey, something like 35 years ago, where he was talking about how the United States was getting screwed by bad trade deals where we protect and defend places like France or Japan or Germany or South Korea. And what do? They turn around and they slap these huge tariffs on our products. He's been saying this for decades. So this isn't any sort of surprise. And this is what he ran on. And what I know is that auto workers here and steel workers here and farmers here are all behind the president. So while Wall Street doesn't like it very much, they like it today, Main Street and the folks that used to be Democratic voters in those swing states, particularly in the Rust Belt, all those union members, rank and file members of the Teamsters and the United Auto Workers and steel workers and restaurant workers, they're all now in Trump's camp. And what do Democrats have left at this point? That's the question, because their coalition continues to shrink. So, yeah, Donald Trump, he's unpredictable, and that's what makes him effective, because you never, to your point, Kevin, you don't know quite what he's going to do or how far he's willing to go. Here he walked up to the precipice, then he pulled back with his friends and told China, screw you, we're going to raise your tariffs even more. I mean, this is somebody who has brass Can I say it on your air?
Yeah,
balls?
balls. Yeah, that's
really
fine.
big ones when it comes to negotiations.
Also, you know, screw China. I mean, I'm glad he's having a war with China. It's about time somebody stood up to that lot.
Yeah.
And also, even before this sort of bombshell announcement a couple of hours ago that has completely changed the dial, in America, rank and file Americans were loving Trump. His popularity ratings were soaring. And I think it's this, Joe. You know, people like you and me and journalists and, you know, the politicians, we're all talking about stock exchange and shares and all this kind of stuff. Most people don't own shares. Most people just think about their jobs, what money they're earning, keeping a roof over their head. And as far as they could see, millions of Americans could see, this was a president who was putting America first, who was protecting their interests. And screw what all the highfalutin media elites were saying, they were very happy with him. Even before this announcement, I would say millions of Americans right now will be thrilled with their president.
Yeah, Kevin, I hosted a couple of radio shows last week in Washington, D.C., and I put out the question, if you're a Trump supporter and you voted for him in 2016, 2020, 2024, are you nervous right now? Do you have buyer's remorse right now? Or are you willing to trust him given his economic record, especially on tariffs and trade? And are you willing to stick this out while you watch your 401k come down? And every single call I got said, I trust the guy, I'm gonna hold out, and I know that he's doing the right thing ultimately in the long run. And the point I would make was, if you looked at the stock market in 2017, when Donald Trump first took office in his first term, so that's 8 years ago, it was trading, the Dow Jones was, at 19,000 points. It's now above 40,000 points. In other words, even with this drop over those 2 days where we lost 2,500 in the stock market and 1,600, if you look at the overall picture, it's still doubled in the last 8 years. Since 2005, the stock market here in the United States has quadrupled from 10,000 to 40,000. If you invest and you're dumb enough to pull out your money because of a bad day or two, especially when you've been investing for years, well, that's on you. And so Donald Trump was playing the long game here, not the short game, and Wall Street doesn't like it, and the big banks and billionaires don't like it, but regular folks, to your point, Kevin, absolutely love this. They knew that he would do the right thing. Let's see what trade deals we get out of this, of course. You know, there's still an asterisk next to it, but this is all going in the right direction, it appears.
It's fascinating times. Well, let's talk about your excellent book, Joe, The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big, Beautiful Campaign. I've got a lot of American friends, used to live over there, and I always said from a very early stage in the campaign, I always said, I don't think Trump is just going to win. I said, I think he's going to walk it. And even the most Democrat-hating American friends of mine said, oh, no, it's going to be very, very close. Why do you think in the end, Joe, it wasn't close? Why do you think he absolutely trounced Kamala Harris? I mean, obviously, we'll take on board that Kamala Harris is one of the most useless women who ever lived. But seriously, why such an emphatic victory?
Because of authenticity, I think, in the end, Kevin, that you know what you're getting with Donald Trump. You may not agree with everything that he says, but you know you're getting somebody who means what he says. Kamala Harris just was a weather vane candidate, would say whatever she thought she had to get elected with. So when she said, oh, you know, actually, I'm for fossil fuels, I'm for offshore drilling, I actually think that illegal immigration is a bad thing. Yeah, all those things that she was for in 2019 when she first ran for president, because she had to go to the left because she won the nomination, she reversed course on basically everything. And, you know, then she comes out with, yeah, I don't think that we should have a tax on tips either, like 4 days after Donald Trump says it. And you're like, all right, this is somebody who's just saying anything to get elected. Donald Trump obviously has been very consistent throughout his career. And think about everything, Kevin, that was thrown at him, all right? Lawfare, 91 felony counts, 4 different trials going on, obviously in places where the jury is going to be manipulated because it's mostly in liberal places like Washington, D.C. or New York City. Then you have all these judges as well who clearly were activists and not acting as fair judicial bench members. And then you think about the fact that he was nearly assassinated twice. You think about the fact that in the United States, there is a hostile media towards him always. And then you think about all the love that Kamala Harris got when she was installed literally as a candidate, didn't receive 1 vote. He overcomes all of that. And I said in October, 2 weeks before the election, he's going to win every swing state. This is not going to be close because, to your point, Kamala Harris, bad candidate, no message, and people were nostalgic for Donald Trump's first term because they saw how good we had it as far as peace and prosperity up until COVID. And that's why he won in the end. He had a track record, he was trusted, and right now, if he, again, achieves these trade deals like we think he may, I don't see how any Democrat gets elected nationally for quite some time here if J.D. Vance is the nominee and carries on the Trump torch.
Yeah, I was saying that the other day. The great thing about J.D. Vance is he's the first vice president of the United States of America that anybody ever noticed. So he's right there. And if Donald carries on like this, he's the next president. So we've got a kind of Republican dynasty going on here. But to go back to Trump's success, I don't know if you noticed, was it last week, Marine Le Pen, clearly the victim of lawfare in France. Now, interestingly, in France now, people who don't like Le Pen, who naturally wouldn't vote for her, are rallying to her cause because they think she is the victim of unfair political tactics. Why didn't the Democrats realise that their blatant lawfare, their blatant bid to darken and blacken Donald Trump's name for political purposes was so obvious that Americans would rail against it? Why didn't they know that?
Kevin, I honestly think they watch too much CNN, MSNBC here in the States, far left liberal outlets. They read the New York Times and Washington Post, obviously. Let's put it this way. The New York Times hasn't endorsed a Republican presidential candidate since 1956, Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Washington Post, in its history, has never endorsed a Republican presidential candidate. The reason why I bring all this up is that they would read the headlines and they saw lawfare and they thought it was being effective with the American people, like, wow, we can't have a convicted felon as our president. But then regular people, if you speak to them on the ground, would say, well, I don't even understand what these charges are. It does not seem to be a big deal. For instance, like the documents case where Joe Biden literally kept classified documents next to his Corvette, and Hillary Clinton did the same thing in 2016. So people kind of shrugged their shoulders at that. And then they saw Democrats even take it to the point where in Colorado and Maine, 2 U.S. states, where they tried to take him off the ballot. And they were successful for a bit until higher courts stepped in. But that's the same thing with Le Pen, right? She can't run for office now because the courts say she can't, or the government says that she can't. And people say that and they say, all right, maybe I don't like Marine Le Pen, but I, at the same time, would rather decide that at the ballot box than by a judge and jury or some sort of government official saying that she can't run. A lot of people are against that, and that's what made Donald Trump, in the end, lawfare helped him because it made the exact point that he'd always had made, is that the weaponization of the justice system is wrong. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, and people rallied around him as a result.
OK, I'm going to say this through gritted teeth. The Democrat Party is a noble party with a long and impressive history. How did they sink so low? How did they end up with a sort of geriatric, senile guy running the show, a kind of semi-half-wit as his vice president who was vaulted in to be the presidential candidate? Their campaign was beyond farcically bad. That guy, Tim Walz, I mean, what were they thinking? Why was that? How did they sink so low? How did their campaign become quite so atrocious? How did they ever think Kamala Harris was a good candidate? Well, what happened with the Democrats, and can they ever recover?
Again, Kevin, I think they read their own headlines. In July and August of 2024, as we outline in the book, we heard about the Summer of Joy and Brat Summer, and Kamala Harris is bringing joy back to the campaign, and Tim Walz, boy, what a fun guy. And then you realize that, no, actually, he's kind of like a goofy 1980s sitcom dad and looks like the least cultured guy at a bus station and just was profoundly horrible in interviews.
Somebody said, Joe, that he looks like an ugly version of Frasier.
Yeah, you're right. Like an overweight Frasier. I never really looked at it that way before. Yeah, great point. But yeah, I mean, the fact that this guy lied about holding weapons of war, said that he was in Tiananmen Square when he was in a cornfield in Nebraska, got married on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre because he wanted a date that he and his wife can remember easily. What? I mean, I could go on and on as far as he was the worst choice ever. I mean, Kamala Harris had Josh Shapiro, a popular Pennsylvania governor in a state she needed, right out there. And she instead said, you know, Tim Walz seems pretty popular on social media with his barbs against Trump, so I guess I'll take him. Oh, not a good idea. The Democratic Party overall was listening to their donors in big cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and not to regular folks in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio, and Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. They became the party of elites, unfortunately, the party of censorship. Yeah. Pro-war party. These are all the things that Democrats used to not be, right? They used to be the party for the little man and the working man and woman, and now, no, they're the party for the richest 1%. They basically become Republicans, and Republicans have become populists. The world's upside down.
Indeed it is. And don't forget the Labour Party, the Democrat equivalent over here, also become the party of the metropolitan elites. Unfortunately, they won the election, so we'll have to put up with that for another 4 dreadful years. So is your book out over here as well, Joe?
Oh yeah, so you can get it on Amazon. I'm not. It's not in a bookshelf per se.
Yes, of course, it's Amazon. Of course, I should have said.
Yeah,
we're living in
Amazon,
a global.
Barnes and Noble, wherever you need it. It wrote itself. It really did. I'll leave it here because I know you got to go. Think about between June 27th and July 21st. What happened last year? Let's see. Joe Biden has a horrible debate. Then Donald Trump is nearly assassinated. Then he chooses J.D. Vance as his running mate. Then Joe Biden drops out. In the span of 24 days, all of this happened. That's why this book just wrote itself. I barely had to type, Kevin. It was awesome.
That's great. I was going to say that since your book is out on Amazon, I forgot it's a globalist world. But then again, no, it's not anymore.
Right.
Joe, fantastic to talk to you. Don't be a stranger. Come on again very soon. Joe Concha, the excellent Fox News correspondent. He's got a new book out now. I heartily recommend it because you can see what a talker and what an intelligent guy he is, and he knows all about the American political scene. His book is Joe Concha, The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. Go and get it and have a read.